Have you ever gotten into a fight with a close friend? My closest friend is my sister, and we've definitely had a few disagreements over the years. I remember once when we were kids, we had this weird fight about a toothbrush. We had been traveling and had just gotten to a new place, and my sister and I were about to go to bed and had to brush our teeth and could only find one toothbrush. So we had this loud argument about whose it was. My mom came into the room and saw us standing by the window arguing about a toothbrush and immediately assumed that one of us had thrown a toothbrush out the window. Now this got really confusing really quickly, and looking back on it, we all just sort of have to laugh at how ridiculous it was. But in the heat of the moment, when we're in an argument or disagreement, how do we keep the facts straight? We remember at Christmas how Jesus came into the world to bring peace and goodwill to men. But if you haven't noticed, there still seems to be a lot of brokenness and hardship in the world. Now, this isn't a failure, but rather it shows that Jesus' work is ongoing. And the Apostle Paul recognizes the reality of this and comments on it in Philippians chapter 4, verses 2 to 5. Go ahead and read these verses. You'll find a link to it in the video description below. So go ahead and pause the video and read Philippians 4, verses 2 to 5. In the first 3 chapters of the book of Philippians, we've seen Paul laying a foundation. God, his truth and revelation, is the foundation that the church is supposed to build on. And so here in chapter 4, we see a very real situation. Paul doesn't just describe unity in the abstract, he gives a very practical application of it to a specific situation in the church. Verse 2 is very clear about this. I urge Euodia and I urge Syntyche to live in harmony in the Lord. Now we're not told about the nature of the disagreement or how exactly it was manifest in the congregation. But we do see real people with real problems being named. In this situation, we not only see individuals being called out, but Paul tells the church as a whole that they need to be applying the principles found in this letter. The whole church is to be involved in pursuing and promoting unity. And even as Paul says this, he reminds them again of their foundation. Euodia and Syntyche are identified as women who were involved in evangelism, sharing their faith and telling people about who God is. Verse 3 goes on to show how this was the mission and purpose of the church as a whole. The big question I keep coming back to as I think about this is why? Why do we need to deal with the messiness of relationships? What's my motivation for working with others? Well, I think Paul points us towards the answer to this in verse 4. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say, rejoice. If you remember back in day 8, we defined joy. We talked about how joy is an emotion evoked by the prospect of having what we desire most. Our heart's deepest need and desire is to have a perfect relationship, one where we are loved and accepted, and where we can love and accept. This relationship is only possible with God, and it can only be realized through the work of Jesus Christ. Our reason for pursuing unity and our motivation for working with others is the joy of the Lord. The fact is that our success and our well-being is defined and guaranteed by God. So let's be asking ourselves, how does the joy of the Lord help me relate to others? What does rejoicing in God look like? Am I helping others for the sake of the gospel?